Hi, this is Privateer Station, and today, as chaotic mobilization effort in Russia continues, we are bringing you day 213 of Ukraine War Diaries, with Mark Feygin, Russian opposition journalist, and Olexiy Arestovych, Lieutenant Colonel, advisor to the Office of the President of Ukraine. Enjoy. Dear viewers, glad to see you all on Feigin Live. It is Saturday, 24th of September, 10 p.m. Kiev time. No joking, day 213 of this war, and this is 7 months of the bloody war in Ukraine, and we are doing today's stream with our usual Olexiy Arestovich. And you're maybe a little bit wrong, Mark. Not just a war in Ukraine. This war is a Russian-Ukrainian war, right? Usually they put the one who attacked on the first place, so it should probably be called Russian-Ukraine war. Over 100,000 watching us live, about 20,000 click the like button. We appreciate your time and effort being here with us, but if you please share the links to that stream, share it with your friends, make sure those who need to see that do so. And if you have not subscribed yet to Feigin Live, to Olexiy Arestovich, and to the Privateer Station, if you are watching or listening to that in English. Alright, without further ado, let's start. Maybe with what was going on the front during the last 24 hours. Is there anything worth discussing? There were some interesting things, but unfortunately we cannot name them yet. Perhaps by Monday we'll be able to go into details. Let's scroll around the map. Mark, then there's no real reason to crawl over that. But okay, imagine, Olexiy, that somebody just joined us today and we're not telling them. Okay. So in Sumy region there was shelling from across the border, a bit north. North of Kharkov there was a bit of artillery duel. Then let's go down to Liman. Evil people already painted Karovy Yar for us. I don't know to believe that or not. Our command has not released the data yet. Belogorovka is ours. We're pushing there too. Bakhmut, they're trying to continue their offensive, although our central command said that we actually pushed back, liberated one of the settlements, and restored the line of the front. Then down south from Avdiivka to Marinka, there's just artillery shelling without attempts to advance. In Zaporozhye, there is nothing really happening. Airplanes are noticed, but there are no active military actions. Kherson, we continue our operation. The only active part where Russians are trying to advance is to the north and to the south of Bakhmut. And we are doing that in Kharkov region and in Kherson region. So we have two active directions, they have one. Oh, we also shot down Su-25, 8th detachment of special forces from the central group shot down Su-25. It's the third Su in the last 2 days. Do you know what it means that they're using more fighters, more bombers on the front? Because they have problems with artillery. They're covering that with jets. And do you know what means that we are successfully shooting them down? That our problems with anti-air portable systems are gone. We had them for a while, and now apparently we do not have these problems. So a couple interesting points there. Okay, let's switch to talk about mobilization as a central theme of this stream. First, I'll share some data that I've been getting. I'm getting it via different channels. Somebody sends me messages via Telegram, others know my direct contacts and drop stuff into my WhatsApp. It appears that chaos continues, and it also confirms that they do have their target on supplying a lot of meat to the front. Gather everything and send it all to the front. That's one. And number two is all that is done in the context of Russian border closures. People give different dates, but Russian border is likely to be closed by before the end of this month, so people will not be able to leave. And they're also already blocked quite a few borders between the regions internally, so those who are to be mobilized in the area of their living could not cross and move to the city in the neighboring region. They continue to excuse out in the public media, Putin's regime, that we're not taking these or that, but looking at the facts, they continue frantic efforts to get everybody. So do you think, judging by the first few days of that effort, we can tell what do they want? Are they really sifting for the ones with military experience and specialties, or do they just need a big mass? According to what we see, they're not really sifting for the ones with experience. Very often people who come to the drafting point, they're not even allowed to go home and take their things. They come there at 4 p.m. and at 5 they're already loaded on the buses and off to the gathering centers. And among them there are people, disabled people with health issues, people who maybe served 20 years ago. But I have other news. So that's the first wave of mobilization, dear Russians. So this one started on the 21st of September. In general, there is a plan for 3 of them. The last one will be starting in the middle of November and should be complete until the beginning of December. And they'll be recruiting you throughout all the time. So it is difficult to collect about 1 million at a time, so there'll be 3 waves of 300,000. So my congratulations. 1 million is a lot even for Russia. There'll be not a single family left where somebody is not taken, or at least from your relatives and neighbors. Another thing, notice how they're doing it. They restricted criminal penalties for violations and evading mobilization up to 10 years. Also, they increased criminal penalties for manufacturers, for Russian military production complex, for failing to provide enough supplies or fulfilling the contracts. It's 5 to 8 years in prison. And they just fired the general who was in charge of supplies and logistics for the army. This is the first 3 days. That means that you will not have enough supplies, you will not have enough weapons. Industry cannot ramp it up overnight. And it's just 3 days. On one hand, one can be saying that, oh, they are so radical at fixing issues. At the same time, these are screaming and glaring problems that apparently they face at the moment, starting with how and where to gather people, how to dress them, and then what to give them in terms of armaments, because all these firings in the logistics side of military and the military-industrial complex, issues that come from that. It also means that they haven't even looked at that before, so they realized a few problems just as they were going that way. That means they have not studied the situation and how much can they conscript without having troubles. So that man was fired basically as a result of the first day or second day. So that means that soldiers will have no clothes, no armaments, And today we already have seen a few videos of old rusty AKs with rotten parts, and that's what they're being given. And that's just 3 days after that effort. Alright, do you think they will have enough power to actually collect that 1 million? Because you need to host them somewhere, because we've seen a couple videos where they're sleeping in the forest on the bunk beds. Not even in the buildings, just outside. Well, if you're really dumb, you can enlist 25 million. You can even gather them. The problem is what you're going to do with them later. I don't know how they will turn that million into soldiers. This is unreal, right? Let's be straightforward with that. It is unreal, but they're trying. Part will be thrown immediately to refill the existing detachments here, so that will add 60 to 80,000 on the front. It will give some effect, but what happens later, I don't think they understand themselves. Okay, tell me please, does Ukraine have enough personnel to resist that? We have 1 million people in service. This is a real million throughout the country? Yes, 1 million throughout the country. We are in a very unfortunate geographic position because Russian Federation surrounds us 5/6 of our border from the eastern side to Transnistria, but even that can change, as a notice. So under certain conditions, you think you can enter the territory of Russian Federation? I wouldn't have outright said that, but I think the map can change, because if they're really throwing all that people into war, there may be other options. Plus, there are other countries, it's not just Russia. There are also other countries that we board, or quasi-government agglomerations. So we do have to protect all those thousands of miles, and also the sea borders on the Black Sea, and we have to find a way to protect all that, so we have to be equally strong everywhere. If need be, we can get more people from reserve. Do you have that reserve? Yeah, we do. We have up to 5 million. It's okay, so potentially up to 5. What about the armaments? I personally don't know how they can do that. Do you think the West can radically increase their weapons supply to dress another million and arm them? Yeah. So you think that reserve, that capability exists? Majority of that million will likely be motorized infantry, and we can always find machine guns, rifles, we can find dress, uniform. We're a 40 million country, we can call for another million, and the West definitely gonna help. I'm still amazed at this whole effort to get two Slavic nations fighting each other, 1 million against 1 million. Slavic people, Mark. As somebody said at the beginning of this war, I think it was Alexander Nevsky, Russian correspondent in Washington, early on, Moscow propaganda was presenting Ukrainians as Russians who speak funny, who speak with accent. Today they are instigating that million and death to what? Same Russians, right? With an accent. Yeah, these things cannot be connected. Right, you have to agree that there was some evolution of their propaganda thought. Yep. They actually went through a certain evolution. I think today's understanding in Russia that Ukraine people are going to be serfs, basically, that they'll kill all Ukrainian men and Ukrainian women will serve other needs of Russian people. And it cannot be named fascism like German fascism or Nazism as German Nazism. It's more probably like just a version of fascism, what's happening there. That whole view on the nation across the border and their actions related to that. So they indeed are getting the stakes higher. 1 million against 1 million, that's higher, that we haven't seen for a while on 1,300 miles. Somewhere you need to fit that million, right? We haven't seen a war like that for a while. Actually, 1 million is not too crazy for Ukraine. It's still not enough. Remember Second World War? Stalin actually used 2.5 million people to liberate Ukraine from Germany back in the Second World War. Okay, over 300,000 watching us live, over 160 click the like button. Let's talk about the other thing. Lavrov made it to the United Nations General Assembly. His speech looked like an answer to everything Biden was saying. I'll be brief review. European Union becomes a dictatorship country. All the Russian territory is absolutely protected by any Russian resource they have. All the territory described in Constitution, mentioned in Russian Constitution. So they're still pushing also for referendum. Wonder how that will play. And they will be. He did mention new territories of Russia: Kherson, Zaporozhye. And he is implying in his speech that the whole territory of those regions is Russia. All Kherson, all Lugansk and Zaporozhye regions, not just the parts that they currently occupy. Zelensky, in his speech, was mentioned that he started the process of making it intolerable for Russian-speaking population of Ukraine to live there, and this is how he laid the foundation to these referendums. Lavrov also says that the West is hysterical about the processes going and the voting for joining Russia. Zelensky is, of course, to blame. Washington is trying to turn the whole planet into its backyard. They always mention something back. It's always something with the butt in the back in their speeches. Okay. The rest is Russian propaganda flood. Nothing new, really. And above all that, there's a soaring question of possible use of nuclear weapons. And I think even Biden's appearance at the General Assembly and Blinken and the other representatives of Collective West and that counter-speech by Lavrov, that all kind of circles around Putin's statement about possibility of using the nukes. If you remember Putin's speech, he did talk about that back then and the winds and where can they carry the fallout. So do you think this is all it could be a prequel to the possible use of nukes by Moscow? What do you think? Well, I cannot completely negate the use of tactical nukes on the front by Moscow. The other thing is that the probability is rather low. We do not see any signs of preparation for that, neither us nor our partners. There's got to be some exclusive, unique circumstances for that to happen. And the answer for that will be catastrophic for Russian Federation and for Putin himself. So these are the basic conditions we rely upon when we make our judgment. Mikhail Podolyak said that the West, he commented and said that perhaps the West is not doing enough to prevent that threat, just like the West did not do enough to prevent the start of war on the 24th of February when Kiev was asking for armaments and for sanctions before the 24th. And he is basically saying that the West is probably making the same mistake. His speech was softer, but basically we're just summing up the idea. What can you think the West do to preclude Moscow from using it? We probably should, and the West should probably show Putin the price of such a decision. How? How do you think that they can do that? I don't know what will be the real red line for Putin, after which they will be afraid to use that. Maybe a nuclear strike, or maybe a massive strike by non-nuclear weapons, with the destruction of Russian military potential entirely. The West can actually do that. United States and the Allies. The problem of the West is that theoretically they can skip reacting to attack, to Russian use of nuke on the front in Ukraine. But what will happen next? You basically allow the country who guaranteed territorial integrity and non-proliferation of nukes to use nuke on the country that does not have nuclear weapons. What will happen next in the world? Oh yeah, everybody else will be trying to obtain nukes. Every other country will try to get nukes. And none from the nuclear club, like United States and others, will have anything to say about that. Because how can you counter that? And then you let Putin do that, you let Putin hit Ukraine, what next? Baltic countries? Western allies? They will have to parry that. They will have to provide and give an answer. And we have heard similar statements to that from American leaders, and many of them in America are being more cautious. They're saying that the consequences will be catastrophic. But Liz Truss in Britain was pretty straightforward. She said, we'll hit you back with nukes. Hodges sent another message. We'll destroy something in return. For example, your Black Sea fleet altogether with bases. We understand what it means. It means a huge hole in their anti-air defense, which can be used by NATO jets. Several thousand jets can easily pour through that and solve all the matters in a matter of hours. So what is a nuclear scenario? Let's look at that. If even one tactical nuke is used on the front, that means that all the previous agreements are cancelled. They're nil. The agreement to not provide no-fly zone over Ukraine, the agreement to not shoot on the territory of Russia, about NATO not coming to Ukraine, NATO troops not coming to Belarus. There are a lot of possible consequences, and given that India and China also called upon Putin to finish that war in soonest manner, and also have a big question about India and China, how will they react to Russia's use of nuclear weapon? They may actually face some blowback from the southeast, from India and China. And okay, imagine Putin is fighting with the collective West, with nukes or conventional war. What will China do? What if China decides to partake in that? What if India does something? What will Putin do then? I think the bare minimum that we will expect is the roughest statement by American leadership. New goals: immediate nuclear disarmament of Russian Federation, release of all prisoners of war, and accepting NATO troops for control. And when they come to India and China for support, and will start claiming that these are our internal things with Ukraine, these countries may actually take a position that, yeah, we are against war, but let's disarm. Let's make sure we control that there is no threat from your nukes to our territory as well. Because we repeated that many times, but when strategic nuclear forces are getting prepared, not a single country in the world can be quiet. that they will not be hit by something. If these idiots decided to pick nuclear weapons, there is no assurance to any of these countries that these weapons or any stray missile will not fly there. And that is always a big question. Not a single bomber, not a single submarine, not a single launch site has a sign that says, please come down, we're shooting only Ukraine. So everybody who has means to react to that will be reacting to that. And I think ultimatum will be pretty stern. And also, we know NATO capabilities in Russia, their intel capabilities. They are very detailed. And we think that perhaps in Moscow, those key people who also partake in making these decisions, the West can always make them overnight millionaires to break apart such decisions and prevent them from coming through in the Putin's regime. So there could be some of these mechanisms gearing up as we speak. And that's the overall position. One can maybe try to play against the West in a global war, but China and India and everybody understands that it may be the end of the whole human civilization, and that means that they will have their position to defend as well. And to fight at the same time with the West, with India and China, that's too much even for Putin. All right. Yeah. Okay, let's discuss another scenario. It was discussed before as well. Where in that situation will be Belarus? Can they become a sort of a proxy that some things will start happening from the territory of Belarus, that it may be used for tactical nuke shelling into Ukraine? I mean, theoretically, it's an interesting move, worth to discuss, but then Lukashenko might come out and say that's not us. All these initial conditions that I mentioned, they do not affect or do not differentiate where the weapon will be used from. And that, doesn't matter which country will use that. Imagine a situation that United States decided to use nukes all of a sudden. What will be the position of Russia, India, and China in this case? And Europe. Everybody will be asking questions, what the heck are you thinking about? It doesn't matter which country uses that unilaterally. It's the same questions. Why are you risking the whole civilization with that? The same questions. Yeah, that launches the whole, if one can use nukes like that, that automatically launches all the possible conflicts for resolution, because Israel can resolve Iranian centrifuges, India and China can go for different things, Britain and France have different interesting territories in the world. And Japan will probably immediately jump onto the nuclear program because they have North Korea, China next to them. If Iran wants to have nukes, Saudi Arabia would want to have nukes as well, and maybe use them. Mark, I am actually concerned that there is no scenario where the limited nuclear war is possible. It immediately goes into escalation, and it pretty automatically means the end of civilization as we know it. All right, let's go back to mobilization. They started seriously producing statements that, we've picked the wrong people. In Stavropol region, they picked an agrarian, a 57-year-old, as his older daughter said that her father got a notice a day before, and the next morning he was collected to the serving site. He, despite his age, despite his experience or lack thereof, he was only cleaning the consequences of Chernobyl station, and that's his only paramilitary experience. So that guy was released later. I think these are still information injections. They're trying to say, well, see, we figured that out. There were a couple overreactions, and we let those people back home. Yeah, but they did not resolve the 67-year-old colonel whom they also conscribed, and many others. These I think, just minor attempts to pretend that they're still sifting through. Our president, by the way, made an interesting statement today. He said that if you defect, if we capture you, you'll be captured as, we'll make a record that you're captured in war. And you'll be treated well, and you'll have a choice to wait it out or to go fight in the Russian Legion. And that's the position of the president of Ukraine. So the president who stands behind his word is that we guarantee civilized treatment. Nobody will know if you were captured on your own volition or if you were captured during the fight. And you do not need to be returned to Russia if you don't want to. By the way, did you hear that Germany also agreed to take Russian refugees, the ones who do not want to be mobilized? Netherlands also did. In Europe, there is a lot of discussion about letting or not letting Russians in, and that'll create another cracking line between the countries that decided to allow Russian immigrants to come through and the countries that refused. By the way, Kazakhstan said they got 1 million Russians across the border in the last few days. This is a gigantic number. I don't know if one can believe that. This is crazy. There are just 15 million of Kazakhs there. I don't think they will let the million in. There are just 15 of them. I'm just repeating what their official statement. Maybe they meant altogether 1 million who left Russia in that time. I don't know. We'll need to clarify the data, but that's what was posted. But with the tempo as such, Russian mobilization potential will probably dwindle rather fast. Oh, they'll close the border. They will close the border. And for them to close the border, by the way, it does mean that the leak is so tremendous that they have to react to that. But imagine, even if it's 200, 300,000, the ones who are leaving are the ones who are potential group to be mobilized. And the younger ones, the ones who are still mobile, the ones whom they need, not these old retirees. And it's understandable why they're leaving. 460,000 watching us, over 130 of you clicked the like button, 130,000. Please continue sharing the link to that stream with your friends and your social media. Subscribe to Feigin Live, to Olexiy Arestovych, and to the Privateer Station if you are watching or listening to that in English. Alright, I have more questions here about what and how will be happening in Ukraine, because it is still a sharp question about Ukrainian students who may need to go. Let's be frank, what is their perspective? Perspective is pretty straightforward. If in Russia they're mobilizing 1 million, you cannot really let your own people go as well. Do you want Ukraine to stay as a country, survive as a country, or do you want to go study in Sorbonne and someplace else while the country is being destroyed? We are at the position of the whole country needs to rise. It is a pretty straightforward situation we need to mention. Yeah, the perspective for students to leave at these times, the 20 plus, that perspective is pretty nil. For now, they're not being touched and being asked to join the military, but we are facing a situation when, and if it will be a physical survival of the nation, they may be drafted as well. So we have to be straightforward with that. All right, let's approach it from another angle. They brought, imagine, all that meat against your weapons. Ukraine has a perspective to win that conflict due to equipment, right? due to the armaments, because access to that and modern equipment, Ukraine is definitely in a better position, having supplies of Western arms available. Do you think that in order to stop all that mass that may be injected in the front or thrown to the war theater, you might need times more, I don't know, 1,000 artillery systems or 200 MLRS, some HIMARS and so on? Yes, Mark, my position is simple. We need to double the number of artillery and MLRS systems, at the very least to double. And second, we need to have the taboo on the armored vehicles and tanks lifted. And then, yes, then armor can win that war. Many people are asking about Lend-Lease. What's going on with Lend-Lease? In my opinion, you can call it whatever. The supplies will be coming. It doesn't matter, really. It's not even talking about Lend-Lease here. We're talking about the change of and the escalation of this war, including the referendum, so double escalation on the occupied territories. The war format changed. It became stronger, wider, deeper. So I congratulate everybody with that. The previous war is no more. Now, with the announcement of mobilization, it is a different war going under different rules. It will need different principles and different tools to conduct this war, and of course it will require to increase the number of weapons being used here. And we are talking about that straightforward. Mikhail Podolyak, our president, our diplomats are talking about that. They're repeating that daily. And I think that our West partners, and not just Western, cannot not notice the principal change on the war theater. One condition is one supply line, other conditions call for a different supply line. Even Scholz mentioned that in his statement, that if Russia escalates, we need to escalate our support to Ukraine accordingly. And that also includes, by the way, to allow Ukraine to export grain to Africa and other buyers. We actually have a record harvest this year. From the unoccupied territories, we gathered more than we did, I think, from every territory last year. So it's times more. Very fruitful year. And so we are facing that problem too. So where are the Leopards then, right? We need to talk about the tanks. Oh yeah. Yeah, they gave us more Gepards, good, but Leopards, tanks. Do you realize that we are defending the whole Europe, the whole Western civilization here? And actually the whole civilization. Because if we fall, imagine where that mobilized million will go. Or do you think they'll be just let go back home after the victory over Ukraine? You are very wrong if you think so. This machine will not stop, it will continue rolling. And we're the ones stopping it. We will close that matter, we will stop it. And we can do it ourselves, just arm us. Make sure we have enough weapons. Everything is very simple. All right. So next what we can say, we've been 38 minutes live, right? We'll have a break tomorrow, okay. We'll continue on Monday. But we need to talk about protests. All the announced protests, they're not ours. They're protests by other groups that were calling upon Russians on the 24th of September, on the 7 months date of war start. Of course, they were all not successful. They kind of reminded of a small little protests, and people were arrested who showed up. There are some people still coming to the streets, taking to the streets and trying to protest and come out with placards and stuff. It's usually younger audience and some intelligentsia in the big cities who are always protesting, but it's kind of useless without the support of another group of people who is the target group for much of that drafting going in Russia. And for us, it is important to get it into the heads of those who are sending to that mobilization their fathers, their children, their brothers, and so on. We need that group. We need that group to start coming out. And we are turning to that group once again. Do not keep your eyes just on one meeting, just on one action. That will not solve things, because they'll send police, riot police, and they'll disperse you. You need to go and ask questions of power, and you know how to do that. That can only be happening in a constant regime. Daily at 7 p.m. come out to the squares. In some parts, people started showing up. It's not exactly the group we want, but it's already at least happening. And these are 3 waves that will be mobilized this year. So relatives of all these people, 1 million is a huge blank. For Russia, it is immense number of people. That means they'll take everybody, students included. So I think those who never were interested in politics, it's time for you to start being interested. Because and those who were in words supporting all that intrigue and all that Putin's action, you have to start bringing it up to your power. They're always on the main squares of your towns and cities. Do not provoke them initially. Just come there and start the conversation. Prepare, because there will be first bodies coming back soon. When do you think the first bodies will start going back? There are 3 waves of that mobilization, right? So it's rather simple. When the second wave will be coming to the drafting points, the first wave will be already coming back in body bags. And by the time the third wave comes, you people will have a lot of questions to ask. Where are the payments for the killed that you promised? How were they equipped? Where were they sent? How long was the training? You do not frame it as the protest meeting. You frame it as questions. And these questions need to be asked en masse. 500 people comes and asks this question. Exactly so. Exactly so. Even if you are alone watching that on the screen of your computer and somebody told you, hey, watch Feygin and Arestovych, we recommend you. Tomorrow, today is a bit late. Different time zones. Somebody has a morning, at some places it's midnight. Anyway, tomorrow at 7, come there. Perhaps you'll see another guy there, another girl. You'll find another person there. Go start talking. Perhaps next day when you come there could be 3, 4, 5, 10, 20 more. It doesn't matter if you live in a village, in a town, or in a big city. If you're especially living in the regional center, come to the administration. Do not walk in the streets, do not come to other squares. Come to the square in front of the organ of power. And I have to reiterate that once again, all these draft activities are happening via your local administrations, city administrations, regional administrations. So they are the ones tasked with the plan. They are the ones working and gathering. In different regions, they're already using not just police, but also teachers and bureaucrats and other people to deliver the notes, the writs to come to the drafting point. So go there, go talk to them, and when there'll be more of you, because there'll be more questions related to those who die, to the body bags coming back or not coming back, just people disappearing on the front, and then you will have a ton of questions to ask. Do not forget that. Just keep coming. A little more will be reminding you that, probably for a couple of weeks, and then I hope you start sending pictures back. And then, there are other traditional ways to fight the war in Russia, like burning military drafting points. That's already happening, right? Oh yeah, we're still seeing that every day, several of them burn. So that's a separate pathway, but we still would like you to continue and to persist, because there are many people who are alive still, but not for long, given that mobilization. So it's better think about it while you still physically are. I have a question, another thing to mention. Both in equipment and cadre, you do not have the group that invaded Ukraine 7 months ago. We killed them all and destroyed the equipment. They're gone. Some detachments had 2 rotations. They completely changed everybody twice. And those were professionals who fought in Syria, in Chechnya, and other places. 1,200 tanks came to invade Ukraine. 1,200 tanks are gone. And those are pretty good tanks, T-80, T-72, T-90 even. What will be with you on T-62 and T-55s, and without any proper training? And you are going to fight. How long do you think you live on the front? How many minutes do you live on the battlefront? I want to tell you that volunteers who were trained for 2 to 4 weeks, 2 to 6 weeks, during the first week on the front line, they lost 20% dead. 1 week in the zone of intensive fighting. And since there'll be a lot of people thrown here, all zones will be active. Imagine how you'll be grinded. Also, there are not too many cadre detachments on your side. Those professionals who know and who adapted to this war, to this style of fighting the war, there are very few of them left. Most of you will be just as mobilized as you are. There'll be the officers who were giving orders 20 years ago. Do you imagine what it will turn out to be? You are going to be used as cannon fodder. You are going to be used as body waves. Most of you have no real training, no real specialty. That means that your main application will be infantry. And that means that out of the heaviest armament, you'll have anti-tank rifle, made in 1944, and maybe a machine gun. And all that you'll use against modern-day NATO weaponry and very polite Ukraine fighters. And you are fighting a war in a country where your soldiers, your people, have already raped children, killed our women. How long do you think you'll live on the battlefront with all that? You'll understand a lot of things when the first wave will be coming back, and that'll be those who will be brought back. Majority is not coming back. They're still here in Ukrainian ravines and fields, because Russian army seriously sucks at gathering their bodies. 2 reasons. First, they don't know how to do that and never thought about doing it. And second is that you need to pay money for every body returned. If the person is MIA, there are no payments. And you have wives with 2 or 3 kids left at home, all that. These kids will be crying just like that girl in the video when her father was being put in transport. They'll never see their dads, and that girl will never see her dad, because all these 500 guys in the video had not enough balls to come to the drafting point and say, okay, at least provide us a proper way to mobilization. You know, you can do Italian way. You can say that you're not against it. You just want to go civilized, give some time to finish your business, gather proper documents, buy equipment. We are okay. But try to push it. At least that way, an Italian way. But in reality, just, burn the drafting point to the ground, and there is no case, there is no body. All they have on you is paper. That's still the system they work. If you burn your own case, your own paper case, you stop existing for them. They don't know how to draft you. Indeed, one needs to realize that there are ways to not do it. Do not come also. Do not come to the drafting points. Do not take these notes. If somebody tells you that this is automatic criminal responsibility, it is not so. Here's another scenario. That's what they did in Iran-Iraq war. In Iran, they like catching people, males on the traffic lights and giving them writs to be conscribed. So if somebody stops you like that, your easiest way, just look at them in the eye and say, you already got one, you are going there, you are heading to the drafting point. Or tell them that you've already been there and you're coming home to get things and go to war. You're not against it. There is no way for them to check it. You can even print some sort of writ or draft it and show it to the people stopping you. Guys, I'm for Putin, he's the god, I'm going there. And you can keep running like that for a while. There is no joint system to track you. All right. Let's agree like before at 7 p.m. daily in front of your administrations. And the last piece of information for today, as we planned yesterday, we'll show you. We sent money to Mikhail Dianov. I talked to his sister. She wrote me in Instagram. We sent money to him, and that was a success. Now we have another idea. There was another defender of Azov Steel. He came back pretty sick. I think he was a police officer. He was a strong guy. He got some issues with his eyes. He was the head of patrol police of Mariupol. He looked real bad on the video. People, from what I see in the doctor statements, they're saying they're very poorly fed, anorexia. One of the women who was liberated, she was 9 months pregnant. She was saying her ration was 2 apples a day. Imagine that, right? They're orcs. They're just horrible human creatures, treating people like that. Oh, ask me offline about Russian prisons. That's what they do. So let's do this. We have about 12,000 in our merch income. Let's just split it and give it to the liberated defenders of Mariupol. Let's go through that cycle, and then whenever it changes, for whatever reason, we'll go back to children. I think, yeah, we have about $12,000 on these accounts, so we can support 6 people, right? Let's use them for 6 candidates, those who came back from prison, and, make your judgment call. The ones who are all right, they can probably fare well, but the ones who got serious medical issues, serious health issues, point us in their direction. And I would probably send that money to the pregnant girls too that came. Yeah, give me the data, please provide the data to Mark. Let's do that. Yeah, give us some data so we can connect and send money to. They could use that help firsthand. And I need to reiterate once again, we don't have staff. Some people are saying, start taking money and process our donations and all. We don't have manpower to process it. Merge project is one simple way we found we can do that. Find a candidate, send money, simple, direct. We don't care how they do it. Do they need to spend money for treatment, or do they need money to spend to cover some debt? We don't care about that. We just find who is the good candidate for that and make a direct transfer. So for those Azov fighters, point us in their direction. The ones who really, really need could use that help. We'll get in touch with them and we'll make a transfer. All right, Olexiy, thank you so much. See you on Monday at 10 p.m. as usual, right? Thank you, dear friends, and goodbye.